We back.
Yes. And we are better than ever.
Thanks. No more sadness.
No.
We were depressed for
no more
good.
crying.
Yeah.
No more crying.
We were depressed.
Good. I just want to say, Sarah, when I meet you, it's on site.
Shit.
Just know that.
It's on
Know that
site.
if nothing else. Not a hi, not a good morning, good afternoon, how are you?
How dare you? Just a straight how dare you?
Exactly. Oh my God. So as long as she knows. So we finished the book.
We
Yay!
did. Yeah.
We did. It was a big beast of a bitch, but we finished it.
That's an understatement because I think this is probably one of the biggest books I've ever read.
Well, Midnight Sun.
Well, I mean, besides that, yeah. I'm just saying it's definitely one of the biggest books I've ever read. Like the thickness of it,
But yeah, I think Silver Flames, A Court of Silver Flames is actually bigger than this, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm going to have to look at that. I do have that book somewhere here. I'm just going to have to compare.
Yeah. So without further ado, let us jump into the last chapters of A Court of Wings and Ruin.
Whoop, whoop.
So we pick up chapter 77 with my mental breakdown.
Rhys is dead.
Yeah, girl. Those were real fucking tears, bro. I was distraught for the rest of the day.
That was legit. I was in shock. I went to the gym. I had to exercise all of that. I was just like, what?
Yeah. I went and got myself some ice cream. It was a whole thing.
Yep.
So Feyre, speaking of distraught, Feyre is
distraught.
losing her shit, bro. She is losing her shit. She has her body over Rhys. She's holding him. She's shaking him. Somebody tried to pull her off and she was like, ah!
Like a legit pit bull. Like she was guarding him and everything. It was Thesean though who was trying to pull her off so that he could actually check Rhys and see if there was anything that could be done. And everybody has gathered there. All of the High Lords, minus Tamlin, and Cassian and Mord, Azriel. They've all made it through the war, but they're all there gathered and they don't know what to do with Feyre. Feyre is on a mental breakdown. The mating bond, she's it's in tatters. It's in ribbons. She can't feel anything. It's a void of just straight darkness.
Yeah, she's very, very upset, crying, screaming, and then tells the High Lord, she's like, bring him back. Did for him what you did to me. And they were like, he's High Fae. You were human. We don't know if that's going to work. She's like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Try it.
Yeah.
Anything to bring him back.
So way back when Rhys did this for her, he held onto her soul through the mating bond. And essentially, that's what Feyre was doing here. Ultimately, all it took was Tarquin to stand forward and basically be like, for what he gave today and for many years before. I was like, Tarquin!
Yes. And as they're all giving the little bit of light to Rhys.
Yeah.
She's like, how do I do it? How do I do it? Teach me how to do it. And I think Tarquin.
No, it's Thesean. Thesean.
Oh, Thesean, yeah.
Thesean walks
tells
over
her,
to her.
how to... Yeah, because she's a high lady, so she also gives a part of herself to Rhys to give him back.
Yeah.
Tamlin actually walks in.
But it clicks for her, though, because she's, standing there, and it's like, oh, shit, we're missing one. Because it needs to be all of the High Lords. And granted, they threatened Baron to give his portion up.
Mord holds a fucking sword to his throat, and he pushes away. He's like, I was gonna do it anyway.
No, he wasn't. Mord was like, listen, I got no problem having one more body count for the day. I was damn.
Right? So Baron does it, and then Tamlin is the last person to come in, and Feyre's just like, please.
I'll do anything.
Please.
She says, I will give you
anything.
It's that begging.
And I was like, oh, God.
It was that begging. Because it says that he does have an emotion that she can't place. Something shifted in his eyes, but not kindness. Finally, when she's begging and begging, he just goes over and he's like, be happy, Feyre. And he drops a little kernel of power into Rhys. I sat there and I was like...
Bro, that got me. That got me right there.
We were already talking about how complex this character was, how we loved him in the beginning, hated him, and then then he saved Feyre from the war camp, and now this. And I just was like, again, it doesn't excuse what he did before, but I'm just kind of okay.
And I completely agree with you. It doesn't excuse what he did before.
No.
But I do believe that he has somewhat redeemed himself.
I think it's a very small redemption here.
It's a very small redemption. And I'm actually okay with that. He doesn't
Same.
need any more of a redemption from here. That's it. That's
That was
it for
it.
him. He did exactly what I needed him to do.
I agree.
So it's like, I'm fine with him now. Like, I'm okay with him now.
Yeah, I think for me, it was, again, doesn't excuse everything he's done, but this little bit, like him saving Feyre, him giving up that little kernel to give Rhys back to Feyre, knowing that, like, well, if I kept it, Rhys would be gone, and, like, that would be, like, the ultimate revenge, right? Like, oh, I don't get to be happy, you don't get to be happy type of thing.
Exactly.
But the fact that he turned around, he just told Feyre, like, be happy and gave that kernel up, like, to me, I sat there and I was just like, he truly, truly loved Feyre. And this was very much I just want you to be happy. Like, it might not be with me, and that is okay, but I would prefer you be happy.
Now, not only is that some fucking grown man shit, that is some character goddamn development.
Yes. Yeah.
And I am so here for it.
He knows he did wrong. He knows he did wrong, and he was just kind of like, I lost her, and I have to accept that. And he did.
Right.
And he was, as long as she's happy, then it is what it is. And I was just kind of like, oh, Tamlin.
I know. Like, goddamn, pulling at my heartstrings. I'm supposed to not like you. But yeah, that was the cherry on top for me. And as she's waiting for Rhys to come back, Feyre is feeding all of these images into his mind, or into the mating bond, the little shreds of it left, about how she felt when she first met him. Everything under the mountain, and then, like, falling in love with him, and her first laugh with him in Starfall. And then she shows him their future together. She's like, you still have so much life left to live. Come back, come back.
But it legit, this was if you remember the end of Breaking Dawn, the very last film, I mean, even the very last book,
yes!
When Bella opens up her mind for Edward to be able to see everything from the moment she first met him as a human all the way up till when she was turned into a vampire and so on and so forth. Like, that's essentially what happened here. She shows all of that to him just to be like, I'm here for you. You need to come back. He does come back. He comes back. He comes back with, like, the lamest of dad jokes.
Oh my God, yes. He's like, well, if we're all here, either something went very, very wrong or very
right. I was like, okay, guy, all right.
Yes. And wait, what about Healy? And he's like, yeah, you sure know how to make an entrance or an exit.
Too soon. Too soon. Too soon.
Too fucking soon, Healy.
Facts.
And then we get another fucking surprise. Rhys is like, can somebody pull Amryn out of the cauldron? I was like, oh, what?
He brought her back. He was going to go, but heard Feyre stayed, extended his hand to Amryn to see if she wanted to come back. He gave her that choice, and she came back.
I know!
Varian was like, bet, my bitch is back. He, like, ran to the cauldron. He was like, "My girl." And they pulled her out.
My notes at the end of this chapter, weeping tears of joy. It was Infinity War and Endgame all in one.
However, when they did pull Amryn out, and they looked at her, Amryn did give up something to the cauldron. She gave up her powers. Amryn is now solely high fae.
Yeah, and I'm going to be very interested to see how that plays out for her living a
normal life.
Normal high fae life, I guess.
She's dating the prince of the summer court. So it's still going to be very cushy life.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
we'll see. Mm-hmm. But I was just glad they were both back. And that brings us into
78.
chapter... Huh?
Chapter 78 brings us into chapter 78.
Bitch, I was about to say that! That brings us into chapter 78.
There you go.
And Feyre's like, I don't want to leave Rhys. I'm holding his hand. I don't want to let him go. I can't even believe this is real. He's like, it's real. I'm okay. We're here. But she does let him go. And she and her sisters go to bury
their
dad. Well, not bury him, but she's like,
cremate
we have to have something for him.
They cremated him. So
yeah. So they're at the top of the hill. King of Hybern's body is still laying there decapitated as fuck.
Vultures are pecking at him and stuff, and Nesta spits at him one last time. I was like, all right,
yes!
Nesta.
She's like, bitch.
Yes.
So they're there, and Elena's like, should we say a prayer? And so Feyre says, the cauldron's prayer.
Yeah.
Like, may mother hold you, may she guide you, may you have eternal peace and live in the land of milk and honey and stuff like that. And then she uses the last bit of her power that she has for the day to cremate their father, and they watch his ashes just blow off in the wind.
Yeah.
I thought that this was a really beautiful moment, and I thought there was a major character development for the dad as well, even though
Yes.
we didn't get to see him as much. Since the first book, I think that was a complete 180 for him, from going to being pitiful and in despair and doing nothing to gathering up an army to fight for his mortal lands, for
Daughters.
his daughters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sad that he had to die.
Yeah.
He was like the Scarlett Johansson. He couldn't be brought back.
No, not at all. And then as they're standing there and they're, saying their final goodbyes to their father, Lucian appears.
Yes!
Lucian was obviously up in the fight. I don't know if he was on a ship or what, but he appears and he, looks at Elaine obviously first or whatever. And he sags a little bit, kind of like in relief to know that she's okay. Feyre kind of goes over to him. She hugs him because that's her friend. That was like her first high fae friend in Perinthian.
Yeah.
And so she runs over, she hugs him. Granted, she's like, I know this is probably not the hug he really wanted, but, somebody had to hug this man. He done went to war and back.
And just wanted to make sure his mate was okay, even if
Exactly.
they're not together.
Right.
I do want to point out on page 676,
Mm-hmm.
he and Elaine have a little bit of a moment. So they're talking, they're walking, and Lucian speaks to her. He's like, oh, I heard that you delivered the killing blow. Like,
yeah, like it's a very, like, obviously Lucian is trying, not that he's trying really hard, but I think he's just trying to have an amicable relationship with her. And I think it's a very, like, small, it's like baby steps towards potentially having a very decent mating relationship or mated bond relationship type of thing.
Yeah, or even a friendship.
Feyre does prompt Elaine because, like, Lucian, at first they don't know where Lucian's gonna go after this.
And Feyre elbows her in the ribs. She's like, bitch,
say something. And Elaine's like, well, she basically says, you could come to Valaris. And Lucian just is like, it would be my pleasure.
I do want to bring up as well, he was told about Tamlin's role in all of this. How Tamlin came, how he fought, how he dragged Baron out by the goddamn throat.
Yes.
How he saved Rhys.
Yes.
And Lucian's like, damn, I feel bad. I feel bad.
A little bit. Just a little bit.
So I'm very interested, and especially what happens later on in the end of the book, I'm very interested to see what their relationship dynamic is going to be in the next couple of books.
And I also, not for nothing, but I think Lucian is warming up to, like, the inner circle.
Yeah.
Because of Elaine and, like, Feyre. Him and Feyre have a very, very good relationship. Regardless of whatever happened, that is one of her close friends. That's one of her good friends. His relationship with the inner circle and that dynamic is going to change, and hopefully for the better, so that he has other friends to depend on, and not that it was solely Tamlin.
Yeah.
So with that, they make it back to the camp, and Elaine and Lucian kind of go off together and talk, which is, again, baby steps towards potentially a healthy friendship or relationship. Feyre ends up back at the tent that she shares with Rhys, and Miriam and Drake are there. Basically, Rhys was telling them about his love story with Feyre, and Miriam is just so happy to meet Feyre for, like, the first, because these are Rhys's closest friends from, like, years back.
So yeah, that leads right into chapter 79 where they're talking about that.
Basically, in this chapter, it was a lot of seeing the dynamic between Miriam Drake, seeing the dynamic between the four of them. But ultimately, in this chapter, Feyre asks them basically if they could take the cauldron. Her concern is, and she obviously speaks to Rhys through the mating bond, and he, like, has the same concern as her. Their concern is that one of the High Lords is going to sit there and be like, well, what are we going to do with the cauldron? You know what I mean? And then try to figure out, okay, well, the cauldron should be here, or the cauldron should be in this court. That being an issue because whoever has it has, a lot of power.
My question for that was, when they were originally looking for the cauldron, they said that it was not in pieces, but 3 of the legs were broken off.
Correct.
So as long as it's not complete, you can't use it. So my thing is, like, why don't they have the majority of the cauldron taken to where Miriam and Drake are, and then disperse the other 3 pieces somewhere where people won't find them? Because if you have the whole cauldron just sitting there.
Yeah, I get it.
And somebody happens upon it, then it's the same thing all over again.
This is true. Yeah, it probably would have been better. But the idea that Feyre comes up with is just Miriam and Drake take the whole cauldron and hide it on their island. And Drake ultimately concedes to it. Feyre also wanted to have a meeting with everybody.
Yes. I was like, I don't know how the fuck this is going to work. Because we already knew from the High Lords meeting, Like how
Oh,
that shit
God.
went down. Like, you want to have another meeting,
Right,
bitch? Like,
come
oh my
on.
God.
And at that, this was not just the High Lords. This is everybody. Humans, everybody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was, they already knew this probably wasn't going to work out very well, but Feyre wanted to have it. So they end up having this meeting in her old family estate. She describes the estate is in ruins and everybody shows up. The High Lords were the first to arrive. Baron shows up with, you know, his brood of kids. And did you notice that they say that, like, Lucien is standing by Feyre's side? When Eris walks by, Lucien completely ignores his father and his brothers, right? And it says that Eris glances at Lucien and he has in his eyes what looks like sadness and regret. And to me, I just sat there, I was like, okay, we really need to start talking about Eris a little more because I really need to understand what the hell.
I'm going to need some family therapy with Eris and Lucien. Also, big thing in this chapter, when Tamlin came in, it was Tamlin and Lucien's reuniting for the first time since he left the Spring Court.
Yeah.
And Tamlin sees Lucien in the Illyrian fighting gear and is like, you motherfucker. And Lucien tries to talk to him. He's like, Tamlin's like,
don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
Not right now.
Yep.
Not now. Please. I can only do but so much kindness in one day before I start ripping out throats, bitches.
Thanks. And he just, it says that, like, he had loathing in his eyes and just walked past and, like, didn't even say a word to Lucien. And, like, Lucien,
but I get that, though.
But then it says, like, Feyre looks at Lucien and in time, she sees Lucien look, and in Lucien's face, there's guilt and devastation. And, like, obviously, because this is his oldest and dearest friend. And I'm sure Tamlin feels like, well, Lucien chose Feyre over me. Like, Lucien chose them over me. And in reality, it's not that Lucien chose them over Tamlin. It's that Lucien has a really good head on his shoulders and sees the bigger picture. And he doesn't see, okay, petty stuff of I choose this person over this person or this person over this person. It's I chose to do this because this was going to help the greater good.
Right. Not to mention, you didn't even tell your best friend that you were playing double agent. So he didn't know. Yeah. But I do hope that they get on somewhat better terms later on.
Jern and Grayson are also here. They're one of the second to last to arrive.
We also meet the feisty Queen Vasa.
She's the very last one to arrive, I believe.
But Vasa's meeting with Feyre.
Yes.
Yeah, Vasa's meeting with Feyre was really interesting to me. She was feisty, like Nesta.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, she is Nesta's, like, match.
Equivalent.
In a sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like
So she's like, she comes up to Feyre and she's like, so what about this curse? Can you break it or not? And I was like, oh,
basically.
Hello. What happened to hello? Good morning. How are you?
Like, because then afterwards, like, Vasa says Lucien suggested you had gifts and the other High Lords do as well. So she's, like, insinuating, okay, so you and the other High Lords are going to help me break this curse.
Yes. She doesn't even ask. She's like, yeah, so you're going to help me do this. And you're also going to help me take care of the mortal queens. Cool. I'll see you in the room for the meeting.
Great.
And I was like,
when she said that, Nesta looked at Feyre and Nesta was like, good luck with that. I was like,
right, even Nesta was like, yeah.
Because
I'm not dealing with her.
Feyre thought to herself, Feyre was like, she asked me as if I wasn't a queen in my own right. And I was like, oh shit.
Right. Like, oh, this bitch is going to be problems.
Thanks.
But I can already tell I'm probably going to like her if she comes back.
Yeah.
And at the end of the chapter, she convinces Nesta to come into the meeting room.
She was going to leave.
And she was like, no, you need to be a part of this. You're not only our emissary, but you have a story to tell as well. And so they walk into the room hand in hand. They stand together. And she says, thank you all for coming. I am Feyre Archeon. I was made into High Fae. I started mortal. I call both the lands my home, Mortal Lands and Perithian. And I want to renegotiate the treaty. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So then that ultimately leads us into chapter 80. She talks about how negotiations started off well. And then as Lucien predicted and everybody else fucking predicted, it just kind of got strained.
Yeah, because everybody's telling their stories about what happened to them, the good and the bad,
Right,
about,
exactly.
interacting with Phorithian people or Fey people and the mortal people and stuff like that. I think it went better
She
than
thought,
the High Lords meeting
oh,
for
yes,
sure.
yes.
They didn't really get to deciding anything. It was just like talks of peace, but at least like it's a start.
Yeah. And then everybody starts to leave, and the last few people that are stragglers, is standing there, and Jurin is like one of the last to go. And he's like, she asks him, do you think we stand a chance of peace between all of us, like humans and
Mhm.
Fae? And Jurin's like, yeah, I do.
I know. I was just like, oh, okay. So if Durin thinks they stand a chance, then maybe they stand a
Facts.
chance.
But also, I kind of ship Vasa and Lucian. I do.
Bruh,
I
yes,
do.
yes. I wanted to talk about that the most
Yeah.
out of the beginning of this chapter, because even when he first came upon Feyre and her sisters on the hill and was telling her about Vasa, how she's like fiery and feisty and says whatever comes to her mind and like you guys will get along, I was like, is there a little spark in his eye?
I think there was.
And then he's standing here.
I think there was.
Yeah, he's standing here talking to her and he's like so at ease and laughing and just leaning into her. And I'm like, okay, so I think this is something that could happen. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that
Me
relationship at
either.
all.
Me either. I was like, this would make so much sense. If she's fiery, she's a firebird, essentially. Lucian's powers are fire, Autumn Court. To me, I just sat there and I was like, I could see this working out. I was like, I could see him being with Voss. I could see him breaking.
Flame to a flame?
Exactly. I could see him breaking the mating bond with Elaine, essentially, to be with Vasa. And I was just like,
Yeah.
because I think, not for nothing, thinking back on it now, I think Vasa is more like, what was her name? Jasminda?
Oh, yeah. The girl that he was in love with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because remember, he was describing how that girl was captivating and seduced him and all
Exactly.
this other stuff. That sounds exactly like Vasa. The only thing is the curse, because, and Juria mentions it too, because he said that Vasa offered him refuge with her court.
Yeah.
But she has to return back to the other continent,
Yeah.
to the sorcerer.
Feyre's father basically negotiated for Vasa to come with them on a temporary basis. That was temporary with the intent of them learning or figuring out how to break her curse so that she never had to go back.
Let's see. Also, they do return back to Valaris.
Mm-hmm.
Feyre makes a note of saying that, the house is exactly the same, the city is exactly the same, but they themselves have all been changed from this experience. Yeah. And I thought this was really cute. Amryn makes a little note about her being a high fae now. So she's like, I guess I have to eat real food now. And Cassian's like, as opposed to the alternative.
He's like, oh, what a monumental sacrifice this is. I was like, yo.
And Elaine actually cracks a joke too. She's like, damn, Amryn is more cranky now than when she was an actual monster.
Right.
And that kind of like puts everybody a little bit more at ease.
Yeah.
Except for Nesta. Nesta is on the stairwell, kind of watching everything happen and watching everybody disperse. And I know you and I were talking about this a little bit yesterday. It's kind of like she reverted back
into
to
herself,
how she was acting before, how she kind of went back into herself. Now, I get it though, because Nessa's dealing with a lot of trauma right now. Like,
right. We also have to take into consideration she never dealt with the trauma of being turned into high fae when she was thrown into the cauldron. Everybody is kind of like, okay, you get what I'm saying? Like, we want to help her, but at the same time, we also need her to go at her own pace and things. And so I think it's interesting that she was slowly coming out of herself and beginning to have a really good relationship with Feyre. But with everything that happened in the war, and mind you, this is the first time that any of the sisters had been in war. That was an entirely new development for her, watching her father die before her eyes, having to deal with the King of Hybern, killing the King of Hybern. That was her first kill. And then, like you said, watching Cassian almost die twice. Like, it's a lot for a girl. And like, to me, I just was like, something's going to happen. Something's going to give. She's going to snap. And like, I think hopefully that's where the story of A Court of Silver Flames comes into place. And maybe that'll help, figure out all of this stuff for her. But right now, it does look like she's going back into herself. She's like reverting back into the Nesta that she was prior.
Right. And I find it really interesting that Elaine was like, should we help her? It shows a little bit of progress that Elaine has made throughout
Yeah.
her transformation as well. I mean, she's still stupid.
Oh, she's very stupid. Another thing that happens here is like while everybody is basically kind of celebrating coming back, Lucian remained back there to like remain back at the war camp to help the humans. And
Yes.
Feyre, because Tamlin dipped after that meeting, he was out. Feyre handed Lucian a note to give to Tamlin that basically said, "Thank you. I hope you find happiness too." I think this says a lot. I think that's the closure and the ending to that relationship that needed to happen.
Yes. It's like everything that we've been talking about. Like they both, well, Feyre has found her peace.
Facts, yes.
But now she's like, she's accepted it and moved on. And he himself, which is a big deal, he has accepted it and moved on.
Or at least he started to accept it and is slowly moving on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that was a really big deal for him because like we said, that love started to turn into
it was
obsession.
Way too much,
and yeah, it was too much. And I think that it's good for us now to see him letting go.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
The only thing that I wanted to point out at the end that I had a question about, does Nesta still have her powers?
They don't talk about it. They don't even they don't even allude to it. She just seems to go in herself and that's it. So we don't even know if when the cauldron broke, it took back the powers. We don't know if when it broke, it also broke her in some sense, in some way. In reality, Nesta is an enigma. We don't really know what the fuck went down.
Right. So I'm really interested to see if she still has her powers, and if so, what she is going to do with them. So then we move into chapter 81, and it's Rhys's point of view.
Yeah.
This was actually a little bit heartbreaking for me.
Aww.
Because he's standing in the kitchen and everyone else is in the other room. They're laughing, they're talking, they're drinking. Cassian and Azriel come to check on Rhys and they're like, hey, like, why are you standing in here? And Rhys kind of has a moment, almost like Feyre had a moment in the cave when he came back. He's standing in there, he's listening to them talk, he's listening to Feyre's lab, and he's like touching his chest like, is this real? Am I here or did I actually die in that cave? And Azriel's like, no, you're here. This is real. Oh, it broke my heart. And it also reminded me of the end of Mockingjay.
Oh, yeah.
Where Katniss had to keep reassuring Peeta. Yeah, it broke my heart. It broke my heart.
It's just, unfortunately, it's just Rhys. This is more trauma to add to his already list of trauma. And so, like, to him, it was just very much, I think he just couldn't believe that they brought him back. I think he was really dead set on dying and making sure everybody was safe and good, and that if he had to sacrifice himself, then that was okay.
I need him to stop doing that shit.
Everybody needs him to stop doing that shit. And I don't think he expected to come back. And now that he is back, it's very much like, I think he was at peace with his decision to die. And so now that he is back, it's kind of like, oh, like, I'm living. Like, I still have time. It's a lot for him to wrap his head around.
Yeah, it was just very, very heart-wrenching for me.
Yeah.
And then we get to the final chapter in this book.
82.
Feyre and Rhys finally get some alone time. They're up on the roof. Rhys tells Feyre that when he was gone, he heard her calling for him.
Yeah.
And like he said before, he kind of held on to that so that he could come back. We also learned that Braxis has gone
Braxis
missing.
made an escape after the war. This man was like, bet I'm out.
Dipped. Like, where did he go?
That's what they're trying to figure out. So, like, Rhys is just like, so Braxis never came back. And Faye was like, so you telling me I'm going to go have to hunt this man down and bring him back to the library? And, like, Rhys is like, basically, you're going to have to.
Yeah. Can you imagine him just having at it with all the mortals?
Oh my God. Especially because there's no wall. There's no wall anymore.
Yes.
So this Braxis could be out in the mortal realm and nobody would know.
Oh my God. Braxis caught a boat.
He back with Miriam.
Braxis was like, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the one big thing from that chapter. And then at the end, it kind of wraps itself up in a neat little bow. Rhys shoots up into the sky with Feyre in his arms. And then Feyre actually summons her own wings and they fly together.
Over Valaris. Over their home.
I was like, not this bitch being able to summon her wings and fly on her own.
But they like, it's funny because they say they see everything together and Feyre's like, a gift, all of it is like a gift. And I was just like, okay.
I'm not gonna lie, I love that ending. And
it was really cute.
I don't really do like sappy shit, but that was a cute ending.
It was a very cute ending to wrap up Feyre's story with Rhys.
Yeah.
I think that's what. That was a really nice ending. Yeah.
Now that we are done the entire book, what would you rate it?
A 5 out of 5. That was a really good book.
I was going back and forth between a 4.5 and a 5.
Mhm.
Only because at certain parts of the book, there was so much information. I was like, bitch, slow down, slow down.
Yeah.
And I felt like there were some parts that probably could have been shortened or cut out. Like the High Lords meeting went on for way too long.
I agree with you there.
But those are just like nitpicky things. Yeah, I still thought that the writing was phenomenal. The character development, bitch, was chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
I really like that the characters, all of the characters, are complex.
Yeah.
It's not a black and white character. It's not I like this character, I hate this character. It's a very much complex community of characters where it's like, you may hate them one minute, but have an entirely, understand certain things about that character in the next. And it was just kind of like, oh, okay.
It's like my gut, my mind.
Right.
My brain is
exactly. But I enjoyed it.
I very much enjoyed it, especially because, Sarah likes to take her time and go through things, not take her time, but she puts all of the action in the last 10 to 15 chapters.
Correct. Definitely noticed that.
She likes to give people a little mini heart attack.
Yeah, at the very end.
To go off into the next book.
Exactly.
But yeah, I would say putting all of those things together, and I think really, like I said, it was the character development that came into play for me. I would give it, just based off of that and the writing, a 5.
Yeah, it was a good book. Most definitely.
It was a very good book, and I'm glad that we continued on with the series because A Court of Mist and Fury was great.
Yes.
But
that one was it.
This is amazing.
That one was it.
This is amazing. Yeah. And so far, my favorite book in the series.
So, what Morgan and I have decided is the next book in the series is A Court of Frost and Starlight. However, this book is very, very short. And from what people have told us, is more of a novella type of book than it is an actual, series type of book. So we've decided that book is going to take only one episode.
Yep.
It's going to be extra content or regular episode.
I think we could just do it as a regular episode. What we're going to do is we're not going to break it down chapter by chapter. So we're just going to talk about the book overall. Exactly.
So it's going to be slightly different the next episode. And then after that book, because that's only one episode, we are going to jump into A Court of Silver Flames, which is Nesta and Cassian's story from...
Because you're relentless. You're all relentless.
Right. We have to continue. And that currently brings us up to date with the series of A Court of Thorns and Roses. So after that, there are, from what people have told us, two or three.
Yeah, I think she's writing two more books for the ACOTAR series. They haven't been disclosed yet. I don't think that there's any information on that yet. So we would, after A Court of Silver Flames, we will have finished the ACOTAR series. And we are looking for new recommendations.
Yes.
We are jumping out of Sarah J. Maas.
Yes.
And into something else. And then we will come back to Sarah J. Maas.
As we always do.
Don't come on here being like, oh, you should read Throne of Glass. I know we should read Throne of Glass.
We will get there.
Throne of Glass. But right now.
We will get there.
There's a lot of Sarah J. Maas going on in the past couple of months. And I need a short reprieve.
Right, exactly.
Because she's been fucking with my mind and my heart, okay?
Oh my God, the roller coasters. So with that, do you have anything to say?
No, just make sure you follow us on social media at YA at Heart Podcast on IG and on TikTok.
Yes. But with that, we want to say thank you guys for joining us. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We love you and always stay YA at heart. Bye.